If I already had a loan in 2026, of course I would pay attention to interest rates. They do matter a lot. But what catches people out isn't just the rate. It's drifting on autopilot in the things they can control. And because once a loan exists, it quickly shapes everyday decisions. And most people don't notice that shift until much later. And that's what this video is really about. When people talk about managing loans, the conversation usually jumps straight to interest rates and repayments. But if I already had a loan, I would organize my thinking around 6 simple awareness checks instead. Not for anything, but just to avoid drifting through a long-term commitment and only realizing it years later. If you're new to this channel, I'm Nova. I've spent over 15 years working as a credit risk professional. I share my experiences and patterns I've seen over time. The first thing I would focus on if you already have a loan is basic awareness. I will not be tracking my loan every day. I will not check my balances every day, but just knowing roughly what the repayments are, when they are due, and how long the commitment runs for. That level of awareness isn't about control, it's about avoiding surprises. I would also want to understand what my loan statements are actually telling me. Not every detail, just the basics like balances, repayments, if there are any overdue amounts, and any fees. Just enough context to know what's happening without turning it into a constant mental task. Another thing I would want a general understanding of is my credit report. I would not want to check it constantly, but just to know what information is being recorded over time and to make sure what's captured is accurate, especially since some entries can remain there for several years. Credit reports are available for free from time to time, which makes that information easier to see when needed. Another thing I would personally pay attention to is how the loan fits into my normal monthly cash flow. Not just where the repayments are being met, but how much flexibility is left once they are accounted for. And that perspective tends to explain why some months feel tighter than others, even when nothing has gone wrong. And this is usually the point where people realize the loan isn't the issue. It's how visible or invisible it's become in our everyday life. And because life doesn't always stay the same, I would also want a general understanding of what happens if my personal circumstances change and I am unable to meet my debt obligations. Not because I expect or need anything, but because long-term commitments make more sense when the full landscape is understood. Not just the best case scenario, but also the worst case scenario. And one pattern I've noticed over time is that people often go quiet about loans, not because loans are unusual, but because they can carry unnecessary weight or shame for some people. If I already had a loan, I would remind myself that borrowing is common, it's regulated and part of everyday financial life. Understanding that context can reduce the sense of isolation, and isolation tends to make long-term commitments actually feel heavier than they need to be. And for me, managing alone would come back to awareness. Awareness doesn't remove responsibility. It just keeps decisions grounded instead of reactive. And that usually makes long-term commitments feel more manageable over time. Just a quick note, this is general information, not personal financial advice. But that's how I would personally think about managing my loans in 2026. Just a way of staying aware, informed, and grounded while living with a long-term commitment. If you value experience-based explanations that unpack how debts actually work without fear or judgment, you are welcome to subscribe for more educational content like this. Thank you so much and see you in the next video.